Good evening, and welcome to another conspiratorial episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your confounding and condescending host, Voice of Doom. Alright. I figured I'd do another diatribe and kind of go back to my old ways of, talking about current events and how everything's going to hell in a handbasket, which everybody knows. I don't have to talk about it much more because it's all happening. It's happening with everyone's microcosm, and it's happening with the macrocosm. Some news today and some things I want to talk about and how different ideas are coming from here and there and everywhere. And so I'm watching YouTube, and today, of course, we know the day before Thanksgiving that two National Guardsmen were shot in the streets of D.C., and they are in critical condition, and I don't know their status at this point in time, but I guess the perpetrator was shot and caught. And the latest news I hear is he was an Afghan national who was here illegally and lived in Washington State for a while, and then somehow made his way to D.C. to shoot a couple people. Now, this afternoon, before I went to work, I was wondering how many minutes it would be before Orangey was blamed for that episode. And it didn't take long for the Reverend Al Sharpton to put his 2 cents in, which is worth less than 2 cents. Yeah, if Orangey hadn't have deployed the National Guard into these cities, this wouldn't have happened, so it's all his fault. Well, then say that about every president that's ever been in office, who's ever deployed troops overseas or deployed troops domestically. Then every single president is guilty. Lincoln, Washington, FDR, Kennedy, Johnson, Bush, Nixon, all of them. They've all deployed people who have gotten killed. So if you want to judge the outcome or the effect by the cause, then yeah, every president's guilty. But I mean, if you go back into the recent history of the last 2 months or 3 months, Orangey deployed the National Guard and ICE and what have you into D.C., and the mayor, who was a true blue, had to admit that things were better in D.C. Now, these National Guardsmen were not out dragging people out of their houses. They weren't tearing their kids away and having people flown off to Honduras. They were a presence in the city to promote security. That if you see people in uniform, you feel safe, which every city should want, especially Chicago and Los Angeles and New York and Minneapolis and every other god-awful wokester area that have been rampant with crime because of what we all know. The Soros prosecutors and the Petri dish judges who feel so sorry for these criminals that they, you've only had 50 or 60 arrests for assault, but we'll let you go because you're a victim until they burn somebody alive or until they stab somebody on the subway which has happened in the last recent few weeks. Now, people are going to get really sick of this whole thing. Nobody wants a police state, but between the two tribes fighting, that's what we're going to have. And it plays right into the hands to the damn elite powers that be. Right into their hands, because they don't care. You think they care how many people die? No, they do not. They want 6 billion people off this planet to make more room for them to enjoy their lives with their AI and their robots. It's very obvious. So, whether they die one by one or en masse, we'll see what happens. But I told you there'd be bloodshed, and now there's bloodshed. And now what's going to happen, just like back in the 60s, when Vietnam was raging, there were protesters. Nothing like the protesters now, because the protesters back then knew what they were protesting. And sometimes they'd get violent, throw a few rocks, and sometimes they'd have sit-ins, but they knew what they were protesting, and they didn't want to become the bad guys. Some of them were. There was the Weather Underground. There was the, people that were true revolutionary anarchist people who, caused a lot of havoc and murder. And they were dealt with, or they were made into martyrs. Angela Davis, what have you. Now, they knew what they were protesting. You ask half the protesters out on the street of ICE and ask them to, say exactly what they're against when they make some blanket statement. Orangey's a fascist. Well, what has he done as a fascist? Well, so many things. I can't even name them all. Well, name one. Well, We've all seen that. It's ridiculous. But what happened is it came to a head because, just like in, the Wounded Knee, when some redneck guardsman, or whatever the hell he was, shot a few indigenous Americans, starts a ruckus. Now what happened was Kent State. Okay, and I've talked about that in detail in my past diatribes. But sooner or later, a stray bullet or somebody just, I don't know what their motive was, and I think it could have been malevolent, just starts shooting into the crowd at Kent State, and 4 protesters died. And it kind of brought the whole thing to a head because Nixon realized, we got to end this thing because it's getting bad. People are killing each other and people are dying. Now, those protesters were probably protesting, and some weren't even protesters. They were just passerbys that happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they got killed, and it created a national furor. Now, it's 1,000 times worse now, because we got these protesters that aren't just protesting, they're impeding, and they're causing a lot of trouble and throwing things, and sooner or later, either one protester is going to go off the deep end, or one redneck National Guardsman or ICE guy is going to lose it, or somebody's going to pull out a brick and lift it up, and then he's going to get shot, and then all hell's going to break loose. So if we could let things go like they're going, it's going to get worse and worse and worse, which is all part of the plan of the powers. All part of their plan. Keep us at odds with each other. Keep us at each other's throats. And that's what's going to happen. Now, it happened today when an Afghan national shot some National Guardsmen. And then Orangey gets blamed. But I think that it behooves us to either calm down None of this would have happened if they would have just let ICE do their job cleaning up the stupid mess that last idiot Petri dish caused by playing into the hands of the powers that be, allowing millions of people to come in unvetted. You don't know who they are, what they're doing, or what they have in their backpacks. And they're all over the damn country. Already talked about that. There's at least 100 or 200 known terrorists in every state of this union. And whether they take their orders or whether they do this or that, it remains to be seen. But, all you need is one or two of these mostly peaceful protesters to get shot and killed, and then you see what hell is going to break loose. And I'll talk about that other little issue about these idiot D's. It's okay for you to disobey unlawful orders if you're in the service. I talked to my kid about that, who's in the Army. He didn't know anything about it. The people in the service are too busy doing their job to, keep up on all the news, and he didn't know anything about all that. And I said, this is what they're saying. They're fomenting unrest by implying that Orangey is giving unlawful orders. And then they say, well, what unlawful orders has he given? Oh, we didn't say he did. We're just saying, the games they play. And they'll probably win in 26 in the election because, as Charles Bukowski, a famous drunken author, once said, the crowd is always wrong. And the idiot populace will vote for these idiot D's. Oh, it's their turn. No. They gotta get rid of Orangey, so we gotta vote them in. And then you see how bad things will get when the Congress is trying to impeach the president and all hell's breaking loose. Now, Orangey's doing his best to try to, solve this Ukraine mess, and they're getting pretty close to a solution, which nobody will like on either side, but you can't just keep killing each other forever. No one's making any headway. They're just killing each other. And in the meanwhile, while things aren't getting blown up, volcanoes are going off, earthquakes are happening, floods are happening, inexplicable floods are happening, Just get rid of people one by one. With the earthquake, with the floods, with the volcanoes. And then we'll unleash the real, SHTF. Okay. But, been watching a lot of people, and they're going off the deep end because they're afraid because of Charlie Kirk, and they're going, my life is at risk just by giving an opinion. And a lot of other conspiracy theorists, including my most stalwart friend and fans, Nick, has talked about Project Bluebeam. Now, I checked into it a little bit. It was proposed by a guy named Serge Monast in the 90s, I believe. He was born in 1945, but I think he lived to be in mid-50s, so they probably got rid of him quick. But his main theory was that they're going to fake a extraterrestrial presence somewhere to create a united world government by an outside force. Now, I checked into it, and there's really not a lot of information. They really don't want to talk about it that much. You would think there'd be 10 million things on YouTube or on Google about that conspiracy, but it's really not. There's not that much. It's just basically a conspiracy that there's going to be some sort of an anomaly, i.e. 3 Atlas AI or whatever the hell it's called, that comes into our solar system, and we don't know what it is. scares the hell out of people. Now we'll see what happens with that, but we got a lot of things going on right now, and we better get ready, because not only is that going on, but I see millions of things on YouTube from the common clay saying they can't do it anymore. They can't pay $2,300 a month in rent, and they can't pay $700 or $800 for insurance, medical, and they can't pay $500 for car insurance on top of all their other bills. And people talk about $700 utility bills. Makes me thankful that, my problems are minuscule compared to that. I have to pay a lot of bills too, but I manage to manage it, especially with the help of my good son. But, yeah, it's happening. Everything I said is coming true. 2026, I always say that every year. 2025 will be bad. I've said it every year. But it looks like 2026 might be the worst thing we've ever seen since the Dark Ages, since 545 or whenever the worst year of history was. We're going to have it bad because the common clay can't make it anymore. And they go on TikTok with their phones and they're crying that they can't buy food, and the food prices are ridiculous. And they can't do this and they can't do that, and then they don't put 3 and 4 together and go, wait a minute, if this idiot petri dish hadn't let in all these people and given them all free apartments and free food and free this and free that, then maybe there would be more for us, like jobs, which everybody's losing because of AI and other reasons, and just the corporate mucky mucks downsizing, and then they can't find new jobs. Now, I could always find a new job all through my life. If I lost one, I got another. But what happens when you can't get another job, and then they take your house and take your car, or people are living in their car, or living in their van, all over the place. All over this country, people are living in their cars, just like Americathon, that movie. You should watch. So, anarchy is rampant. Looting. People at each other's throats, and racial wars, and and everybody pitting themselves against each other. And then the bleeding heart lib wokesters are keeping these criminals on the street, or keeping mentally ill people on the street so they can kill and burn. So this ain't going to hold. 2026 is going to be the year that everybody wakes up and sees that it's all falling apart big time for reals. And I was always thinking, well, it'd be nice to have an EMP because then I could just stay at home and read and play piano. No, an EMP is going to be horrible. 2 or 3 days into it, and everybody will be scared shitless because there will be marauders. So everybody better get ready for it. I'm not going to say this much longer. I've already said it. I've had 500 and something videos you can watch and see how things have gone bad. And we'll be eating each other, literally and figuratively. So on that happy note, I'll wish you a very happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your feast, because it probably will be the last Thanksgiving that we can enjoy in the traditional sense, and not have to go out and find our own turkey in the woods, which you're not going to find. So forget that. So enjoy, and happy holidays, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.